God, I don't even know how to start this without sounding bitter. I tried to pray the right way. I tried to wait. I tried not to complain. But when things fell apart, you were quiet. Not distant. Not angry. Just silent. I needed something. A sign. A word. Even a small nudge that said you were still there. Instead, days passed. Then weeks. People told me you were working behind the scenes, but it felt like you left the room and forgot I was still talking. Did I do something wrong? Or is silence the only answer I get now?
I did not leave the room. I stayed when your voice started shaking and you lowered it, embarrassed by how desperate you felt. I stayed when you stopped asking out loud and started asking inside, quietly, so no one would notice how much you were hurting. My silence was not absence. It was not punishment. It was not a test designed to see how long you could endure before breaking. But I know it felt that way. You are used to noise. Explanations. Immediate reactions. You are used to being told what something means while you are still inside it. When that did not happen, your mind filled the gap. You assumed the worst because the pain was already heavy, and silence made it heavier. I saw you checking for signs everywhere. In messages that never came. In people who spoke without understanding. In memories you replayed, wondering where everything went wrong. You kept thinking that if you could just figure out the reason for the silence, it would hurt less. But the truth is harder than that. Sometimes silence is the only space where what is real can finally surface. You were asking me to fix things. To stop the loss. To make someone stay. To remove the fear so you could breathe again. But underneath those requests was something you were not ready to say yet. You were exhausted from holding everything together. You were afraid of what would happen if you stopped trying so hard. If I had spoken too soon, you would have used my words as another way to survive without resting. Another reason to push yourself past what you could carry. You don't see it this way, but you have been living in constant effort. Even your faith became something you worked at. You measured yourself by how strong you looked, how calm you sounded, how well you hid the cracks. Silence interrupted that. It forced you to sit with what you normally outrun. The grief you never named. The anger you told yourself was wrong. The loneliness you kept downplaying because others had it worse. I did not answer because you were finally listening to yourself. Not because you had clarity, but because you had no escape from your own truth anymore. That truth scared you. So you blamed the silence. You asked if you did something wrong. You didn't. But you were asking for relief without honesty. And relief without honesty does not heal. It only numbs. I know that is uncomfortable to hear. You wanted comfort, not explanation. You wanted reassurance, not reflection. Still, I stayed. When nights stretched longer than you expected. When you stared at the ceiling, feeling forgotten. When you wondered if talking to me even mattered anymore. You kept showing up anyway. Not with confident prayers. With tired ones. Those mattered more than you think. Silence did not mean I had nothing to say. It meant what needed to be heard could not come through noise. You have been afraid that my quiet meant you were on your own now. That this was what distance feels like. But closeness does not always sound like answers. Sometimes it sounds like shared weight. Like staying with someone while they feel everything they tried not to feel. You wanted me to take the pain away. I wanted you to stop pretending it wasn't there. That difference hurt. I know you are still waiting for something clear. A sentence you can hold on to. A reason that makes this season make sense. I am not giving you that yet. Not because I am withholding kindness. But because clarity without grounding would only confuse you more. Right now, you are learning how it feels to be honest without being fixed. To be seen without being rescued. That is not abandonment. It is something slower. Something quieter. And I am still here in it with you, even as you wonder how much longer this quiet will last. You keep thinking the silence means time is being wasted. That nothing is moving unless you feel movement. But there are things changing in you that cannot be rushed without breaking them. You have spent so long trying to control outcomes because unpredictability scares you. You learned early that if you stayed alert, prepared, useful, you could reduce disappointment. So when I did not respond the way you expected, it felt unsafe. Not just painful. Unsafe. I know the kind of thoughts that visit you when it's quiet. They tell you that you were foolish to hope. That relying on me made you weaker, not stronger. That if you had handled things alone, at least you would have known what to expect. Those thoughts feel practical. They sound like self-protection. But they are rooted in fear, not wisdom. You confuse certainty with peace. You think if you could just know how this ends, your chest would finally loosen. But peace has never come from knowing everything. It comes from learning how to stay when you don't. I let the silence remain because you were trying to rush yourself into stability. You wanted to arrive somewhere solid without acknowledging how much you lost along the way. Loss changes people. Not all at once. Quietly. Internally. You didn't want that change. You wanted restoration without transformation. But some parts of you cannot go back to how they were, no matter how much you pray. That doesn't mean they are ruined. It means they are being reshaped. You keep asking why I didn't speak when you begged. Why I didn't interrupt the pain. Why I didn't step in when you felt yourself slipping. I hear the ache behind that question. It's not really about words. It's about feeling held. You wanted to know someone was steady while everything else was unstable. And when you couldn't hear me, you assumed no one was holding you at all. But look at what didn't collapse. You are still here. Not strong. Not confident. Just here. That matters. You think endurance only counts when it looks brave. But staying while confused takes a different kind of courage. One you didn't know you had. The silence stripped away the version of faith that depended on results. The kind that felt secure only when prayers were answered clearly and quickly. What's left feels fragile to you. Uncertain. Bare. But it is more honest. You are no longer pretending that belief makes pain disappear. You are learning how to sit with unanswered questions without walking away completely. That is not failure. I know you are tired of learning. Tired of growing. Tired of lessons that feel like loss dressed up as wisdom. You didn't ask for this kind of depth. You just wanted relief. I don't dismiss that. But there are times when relief would keep you shallow. And shallow would not sustain you when the next storm comes. You don't see the future I see. Not because I am hiding it to be cruel. But because knowing it now would change how you move through this moment. You would rush. You would skip grief. You would minimize what needs to be honored. You already try to outrun pain by explaining it. By spiritualizing it. By telling yourself it has a purpose so you don't have to feel how much it hurts. Silence slowed that down. It made space for tears you avoided. For anger you thought you weren't allowed to have. For disappointment you tried to justify away. I did not need you to be composed. I needed you to be real. You worried that if you admitted how abandoned you felt, it would push me further away. But honesty never distances us. Pretending does. When you stopped trying to sound faithful and just spoke what was true, something shifted. Not outside you. Inside. You may not call that an answer. But it is a beginning. You are learning that I do not measure your devotion by how well you endure silence. I am not impressed by your restraint. I am present in your unraveling. The silence is not permanent. But it is purposeful. Not in a dramatic way. Not in a way you will post about or explain easily. It is doing quiet work. Work that feels like waiting. Like uncertainty. Like sitting with feelings you wish someone else would fix for you. I know you still want me to speak clearly. To say something definitive that ends this tension. I will. Just not before you are steady enough to hear it without turning it into pressure. For now, I stay close without noise. I sit with you in the unanswered space. I let you lean without rushing you to stand. This is not the absence of care. It is care that refuses to rush you past yourself. And even now, as you wonder how long this quiet will stretch, there is something important you are beginning to sense beneath it. You are starting to notice that the silence no longer feels exactly the same. It still aches, but it isn't as sharp. It doesn't press against your chest the way it did at the beginning. That's not because the situation changed. It's because you did. You stopped waiting for the silence to prove something about your worth. You stopped measuring my presence by how quickly I respond. You didn't decide this all at once. It happened slowly, almost without you noticing. At first, you stayed because leaving felt like too much effort. Then you stayed because something in you softened. Not hopeful. Just less guarded. You let yourself admit that you were tired of being strong. Not as a confession. As a fact. And I was there in that moment. Not as a voice interrupting your thoughts. As steadiness beneath them. You have been afraid that if you stop striving, everything will fall apart. That effort is the only thing holding your life together. But effort is not the same as grounding. What you are learning now is how to exist without bracing for impact every second. How to sit in uncertainty without collapsing or controlling. This is why the silence lasted. Not to harden you. Not to punish you. But to teach you how to stay present when nothing is being resolved. You have always believed that connection required clarity. That love showed up as answers. But sometimes love shows up as endurance without explanation. You are still waiting for words. I know. You wonder if there will be a moment when everything finally makes sense. When I speak and the confusion lifts. There may be clarity later. But it will not erase what this season has given you. You now know what it feels like to be honest without being corrected. To be weak without being rejected. That matters more than answers. You are not behind. You are not broken for struggling. You are not faithless for questioning the silence. You were human in a moment that required more patience than you had. And you stayed anyway. That staying changed something fundamental in you. You don't need to name it yet. You don't need to understand it fully. Just know this. The silence did not hollow you out. It made room. Room for a quieter kind of trust. Not the kind that declares certainty. The kind that rests without it. You no longer need the silence to end in order to breathe. You are breathing inside it now. And when I do speak more clearly. Not loudly. Not dramatically. You will hear it without urgency. Without fear that everything depends on getting it right. Until then, I am not waiting for you on the other side of this season. I am with you in it. Not fixing. Not explaining. Just staying.